So long a letter by Mariama Bardia Racer 2. Continued Chapter 20. Today is Friday. I've taken a refreshing bath. I can feel its revitalizing effect, which, through my open pores, soothes me. The smell of soap surrounds me. Clean clothes replace my crumpled ones. The cleanliness of my body pleases me. I think that as she is the object of attraction for so many eyes, cleanliness is one of the essential qualities of a woman. The most humble of huts is pleasing when it is clean. The most luxurious setting offers no attraction if it is covered in dust. Those women we call house-wives deserve praise. The domestic work they carry out, and which is not paid in hard cash, is essential to the home. Their compensation remains the pile of well-ironed, sweet-smelling washing, the shining tiled floor on which the foot glides, the gay kitchen filled with the smell of stews. Their silent action is felt in the least useful detail. Over there, a flower in bloom placed in a vase, elsewhere a painting with appropriate colors, hung up in the right place. The management of the home is an art. We have learned the hard way, and it is still not over. Even deciding on the menus is not easy, if one thinks of the number of days there are in a year, and of the fact that there are 3 meals in one day. Managing the family budget requires flexibility, vigilance and prudence in performing the financial gymnastics that send you from one more or less dangerous sleep to another, from the first to the last day of the month. To be a woman. To live the life of a woman. Asa 2. Tonight I'm restless. The flavor of life is love. The salt of life is also love. Day Ouda came back. An outfit of blue brocade had replaced the grey outfit of the first visit, and the chocolate-coloured one of the second. He began right at the doorway, in the same tone of voice as I had used at our first meeting, without stopping for breath. How are you? And the children? And your assembly? And what about Ausman? Hearing his name, Ausman appeared, his mouth and cheeks covered with the chocolate he munched all day long. Day Ouda grabbed hold of this little slip of a man, who struggled and kicked his legs about. He let him go with a friendly tap on his buttocks, and a picture book in his hands. Ausman, shouting with joy, ran to show his present to the household. No visitors. I shall lead the discussion today, I from the male assembly. He laughed maliciously. Don't think that I criticize just for the fun of it. Our incipient democracy, which is changing the situation of the citizen, and for which your party may take much credit, appeals to me. Socialism, which is the heart of your action, is the expression of my deepest aspirations, if it is adapted to the realities of our life, as your political secretary claims. The openings it has created are considerable, and Senegal offers a new prospect of liberty regained. I appreciate all that, especially when all around us, to our right and to our left, one-party systems have been imposed. A single party never expresses the unanimous view of the citizens. If all individuals were made in the same mold, it would lead to an appalling collectivism. Differences produce conflicts, which may be beneficial to the development of a country, if they occur among true patriots, whose only ambition is the happiness of the citizen. But enough of politics, Ramataule. I refuse to go along with you, like the other day. I have had my fill of democracy, struggle, freedom and what have you, all those expressions that float about me daily. Enough, Ramataule. Listen to me, rather. The Bush radio has informed me of your refusal to marry Tamsa. Is it true? Yes. I, in turn, and for the second time in my life, have come to ask for your hand. After you are out of mourning, of course. I have the same feeling for you as I had before. Separation, your marriage, my own, none of these has been able to sap my love for you. Indeed, separation has made it keener. Time has consolidated it. My advance in years has purified it. I love you dearly, but with my head. You are a widow with young children. I am head of a family. Each of us has the weight of the past to help us in understanding each other. I open my arms to you for new-found happiness. Will you accept? I open my eyes wide. Not in astonishment, a woman can always predict a declaration of this kind, but in a kind of stupor. Ah yes, Asa too, those well-worn words, which have for long been used, and are still being used, had taken root in me. Their sweetness, of which I had been deprived for years, intoxicated me. I feel no shame in admitting it to you. Very reasonably, the deputy concluded. Don't give me an answer immediately. Think about my proposal. I shall come back tomorrow at the same time. And, as if embarrassed by his own revelations, de Oude went away, after flashing a smile at me. My neighbour, Farmata, the great woman, dashed in after him, excited. She was always trying to see into the future with her Corys, and the least agreement of her predictions with reality thrilled her. I met the strong, rich man with the double trousers seen in the Corys. He gave me 5,000 francs. She blinked her deep, piercing eyes that were always trying to probe into mysteries. I have given the recommended arms of 2 white and red kola nuts, she confessed to me. Our destinies are linked. Your shade protects me. You don't fell the tree whose shade protects you. You water it. You watch over it. Dear Farmata, how far from my thoughts you were. The restlessness with which I was struggling, and which you had foreseen, did not in the least signify the anguish of love. Chapter 21 tomorrow. What a short time for reflection, for the decisive commitment of life, especially when that life has known, in the recent past, the bitter tears of disappointment. I still have a vision of the intelligent eye of de Oude dying, the pout of the stubborn lips, which contrasted with the gentleness emanating from his profoundly charitable person, who saw only the best in people, and ignored the rest. I could read him like an open book in which each sign was a symbol, but an easily interpreted symbol. The heart no longer beats wildly in the whirl of the spoken words. I am touched by the sincerity of words, but I am not carried away by it. My euphoria, born of the hunger and thirst for tenderness, fades away as the hours dance past. I cannot put out any flags. The proposed celebration does not tempt me. My heart does not love de Oude dying. My mind appreciates the man, but heart and mind often disagree. How I should have liked to be galvanized in favor of this man, to be able to say yes. It is not that the memory of the deceased lies heavy within me. The dead have only the weight conceded to them, or the weight of the good they have done. It is not that the presence of my young children poses a problem. He could have filled the role of the father who had abandoned them. 30 years later, my own personal refusal is the only thing that conditions me. I have no definable reason. Our currents are opposed. De Oude dying's reputation for seriousness has already been established. A good husband. Yes. Public rumor, so wicked and thirsty for gossip where personalities are concerned, has never mentioned any goings-on of his. His wife and cousin, whom he married 5 years after my marriage out of his duty as a citizen, and not out of love, another male expression to explain a natural action, has borne his children. wife and children, placed by this dutiful man on a pedestal of respectability, offered him an enviable refuge, the outcome of his own effort. He never accepted any honor without associating his wife with it. He involved her in his political actions, his numerous travels, the various sponsorships for which he was canvassed, and which increased his electoral constituency. Before leaving, Farmata, the great woman of the chorus, had said, "Your mother was right. De Oude is wonderful. Watberg gives 5,000 francs today. De Oude has neither exchanged his wife, nor abandoned his children. If he has come back looking for you, an old woman burdened with a family, it is because he loves you. He can look after you and your family. Think about it. Accept all the trump cards. But what do these count for in the uncontrollable law of attraction? So as not to hurt him under my roof, sent Farmata, the great woman of the chorus, with a sealed envelope for him, with the following instructions. This letter must be given to him personally, away from his wife and children. For the first time, I was turning to Farmata for help, and this embarrassed me. She was happy, having dreamed of this role right from my youth. But I always acted alone. She was never a participant in my problems, only informed just like any vulgar acquaintance. She would complain. She was thrilled, ignorant of the cruel message she was bearing. De Oude's clinic was not far from the Villa Falline. There was a stop for the cars rapids just a few meters from his doorstep. His clinic, set up with a bank loan granted by the state to those doctors and pharmacists who expressed the desire for it, enabled De Oude dying to continue practicing his profession. He had understood that a doctor could not abandon his call. A doctor's training is slow, long, taxing, and they are not to Farmata, who had smiled in handing over her letter, told me how her smile soured on her face as De Oude read. Then instinct and observation brought a look of sadness to her face, for De Oude wrinkled his eyebrows, creased his forehead, bit his lips and sighed. De Oude put down my letter. Calmly, he stuffed an envelope with a wad of blue notes. He scrawled on a piece of paper the terrible words that had separated us before, and that he had acquired during his medical course. All or nothing. Adieu. Asa too. De Oude dying never came back again. Bismillah. Bismillah, what was it you dared to write and make me messenger of? You have killed a man. His crestfallen face cried it out to me. You have rejected the messenger sent to you by God, to reward you for your sufferings. God will punish you for not having followed the path towards peace. You have refused greatness. You shall live in mud. I wish you another Modu, to make you shed tears of blood. Who do you take yourself for? At 50, you have dared to break the Woolley.9. You trample upon your luck. De Oude dying, a rich man, a deputy, a doctor, of your own age group, with just one wife. He offers you security, love, and you refuse. Many women, of Darba's age even, would wish to be in your place. You boast of reasons. You speak of love instead of bread. Madam wants her heart to miss a beat. Why not flowers, just like in the films? Bismillah. Bismillah. You so withered, you want to choose a husband like an 18-year-old girl. Life will spring a surprise on you and then, Ramataule, you will bite your fingers. I don't know what De Oude has written, but there is money in the envelope. He is a true Sambarel Inguer 2 degrees from the olden days. May God satisfy, gratify De Oude dying. The heart is with him. Such was Farmata's tirade on her return from her mission. She thoroughly upset me. The truth of this woman, a childhood companion through the long association of our families, could not hold good for me, even in its logic of concern. Once more, Elle was refusing the easy way because of my ideal. I went back to my loneliness, which a momentary flash had brightened briefly. I wore it again, as one wears a familiar garment. Its cut suited me well. I moved easily in it, despite Farmata. I wanted something else, and this semi-optional thing else was impossible without the full agreement of my heart. Tamsir and Aouda having been rejected, there were no more barriers between the suitors and me. I then watched filing past and besieging me old men in search of easy revenue, young men in search of adventure to occupy their leisure. My successive refusals gave me in town the reputation of a lioness or mad woman, who let loose this greedy pack of hounds after me. For my charms had faded with the many maturities, with time, with the tears. The inheritance, the fat share acquired by my daughter Darba and her husband and put at my disposal. They had led the fight for the distribution of Modu's estate. My son-in-law laid down on the table the advance for the Sekup villa and 5 years' rent. The Sekup villa went to my daughter, who, with the bailiff's affidavit in hand, listed the contents and bought it. The story of the villa fallen was easy to relate. The land and building represented a bank loan granted 10 years ago on the security of our joint salaries. The contents, renewed 2 years ago, belonged to me, and to support this claim, I produced the receipts. There remained Modu's clothes, those that I recognized because I had chosen and cared for them, and the others from the second part of his life. I found it difficult to imagine him in this get-up of a young wolf. They were distributed to his family. The jewels and presents given to Lady Mother-in-law and her daughter were theirs by right. Lady Mother-in-law Hikoed cried. She was being stripped, and she asked for mercy. She did not want to move out, but Darba is like all the young, without pity. Remember, I was your daughter's best friend. You made her my mother's rival. Remember, for 5 years you deprived my mother and her 12 children of their breadwinner. Remember, my mother has suffered a great deal. How can a woman sap the happiness of another? You deserve no pity. Pack up. As for Bina too, she is a victim, your victim. One feels sorry for her. Lady Mother-in-law sobbed. Bina too. Indifference itself. What did it matter to her what was being said? She was already dead inside, ever since her marriage to Modu.